Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we interview real business owners, talk real numbers, and ask them whether or not they would sell their business. We have a fun one today. We have Robert Mayer joining us from Scottsdale, Arizona, and he has a really fascinating and fun party bike rental company that we're going to talk all about. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Clint Fiore, mergers and acquisition specialist out of Texas. So Robert, it's good to see you. How are you, man?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being here. So for folks that might not know you, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Yeah, so I was originally working for a public affairs firm running congressional campaigns, doing lobbying and stuff like that when I got a call from my buddy. And he was like, man, I saw the coolest concept from a YouTube video in Amsterdam. We should totally get this going. And it's this party bike concept. And it was 2011. They were pretty much like nowhere in the US at the time. And I was like, yeah, that looks awesome. Let's do it. And so I put some money in, I quit my job, moved back down to Tucson, and we got it going in the summer of 2011. And you know, just as you would imagine, like a bunch of buddies in their mid-20s getting together to do something like this, it all fell apart really quick. And they tore up all the roads that we operated on. It all just kind of went to hell, and he moved it out to North Carolina. And so I really fell in love with the concept. It's this 14-person pedal-powered vehicle where you get a bunch of people on there. They all face each other. They pedal the vehicle. They can have their adult beverages on board. It's just such a fun concept. I really fell in love with it. And so even though the whole thing fell apart and he moved the business, I kind of thought to myself, there's going to be one of these in every city in the country. I think I can become a manufacturer. So I basically drunk dialed some friends, put a quick plan together, got like $40,000 from some college and high school friends, and found some Mormons down in St. David, Arizona, with an off-road parts fabrication shop that I started working with to build party bikes. And it took about a year. We built our first one, and then and it worked, and we started selling them, and it just kind of blew up from there. Started up the tour business again, expanded all throughout Arizona, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. My buddy, who I still own a part of his business, he now owns he's started the Tour Scale franchise, which is a few different tour vehicle based concepts. So I'm a little involved in that. And I've been doing it for 13 years. And it's been a lot of fun.
When I met you, it was a few years ago. And to set the stage, we had a breakfast in Deep Ellum, Dallas. You were in the process of selling your Dallas location to, I believe your general manager bought it, correct? I am a business broker by trade. You all know that watch this show. I was nudging him to let me sell his other parts of his business. Arizona primarily is kind of big cash cow. But take me to today. So you've been doing this for 13 years. Are you partners on some of these other cities, or do you mainly own Arizona, or what's the scope of, like, how many cities are you in where you're the owner, and how many like party bikes do you own? And for those that don't know, go look at their website, Arizona Party Bikes. These are like the Rolls Royce of party bikes. Like, they are incredible machines. What are they worth? Like 60 grand, or like, what do they cost?
Yeah, I think like they'd probably, costs have gone up a lot. They'd probably sell like around 60, 70K new.
Yeah.
Something like that without the franchise stuff.
Yeah, they're ridiculously nice. So yeah, tell me about what cities are you in now? How many bikes do you have, that you're an owner of, or how does this work?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's across the board. So Arizona's my main operation, right? I've got 4 high school and college buddies who put some of that money in the beginning for my manufacturing business. And what I had realized there was there's no money in manufacturing these for other people. And I didn't know anything about franchising. I didn't know anything about SBA loans when I was 24 years old. So the strategic decision I made was I'm going to build these for myself and start this tour business, because there were only a couple people in the world making them, and you could only get like one a year. You couldn't really expand your tour business that much with them. And so we turned all of our production inward. So even though that business wasn't really a business anymore, I kind of pulled them over into the tour business. So they own a minority piece of my tour business in Arizona. So I've kept true to my word on all of that. They got me going. They put money in. I probably had like $20 in the bank when they invested in me, and I'm so stoked to have them, because the amount I've been able to return to them is like, a lot of them have had kids now. It's like funding their kids' college and stuff like that. It's such an awesome feeling to have these, minority investors who are friends and been able to benefit their lives that way. So I've got minority investors on the Arizona tour business side. And then, as you mentioned, Clint, I started up Dallas Party Bike. I brought them along on that one too, because we were using some of that initial cash to launch that business. And then Austin and San Antonio came a little bit later. Those were post-COVID. I actually went into those 50-50 with that original buddy of mine who has the Tour Scale franchise. So me and him went in 50-50 on those. Those were like turnaround locations with some like kind of non-performing operators. So we went in, turned those around. We actually ended up selling the Austin one to my Dallas manager who bought Dallas. And then we actually still own San Antonio. My goal is to be totally free. I think, as I told you, totally free of out-of-state problems. But my buddy's the operating partner on that one, so I don't really have to deal with it. So, but we'll see what happens with it.
Talk me through numbers here. So I want our audience to get their heads around like the numbers of this thing. Can you tell me just like how many bikes are in Scottsdale and San Antonio? Yeah. What's your revenue, and what type of profits you're making?
Yeah, so it's across the board. I'll mainly speak to Arizona, just because of kind of like NDA obligations with the other like Texas locations and stuff like that. But Arizona is the one. It's the biggest one anyway. It's the largest party bike operation in the universe, as I like to say. It's got the most bikes of any place, and so we've got 18 of them in Scottsdale. That's kind of a big one. And then we've got a few. We just reopened our downtown Phoenix location about a year ago, post COVID. That's got a few. That one's growing and going well. And then Tucson, we've had that one since the beginning. It's kind of a small market. Everyone's kind of spread out, so it's just a small market, but it's our original. And then we just acquired. There was an operator in Flagstaff for a number of years who wanted to. His kids are turning into teenagers, wants to spend time with them, and it's like, well, we're not Arizona Party Bike if we don't have Flagstaff, so I'll buy you. So we've been in Flagstaff for a couple of years now too.
I didn't know that. That's cool. And talk to me about like what's your revenue trend been like over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, my first year with the tour business, down in just one bike down in Tucson, it was like first year, $50,000 in revenue. You're like scraping for ramen. I think I lived in like a 250 square foot utility closet that year. Basically I just double my pre-COVID, just tried to double revenue every year. And so by the time 2019 came around, we had a competitor in Scottsdale that we overtook, and then they decided to get out of the business, and we acquired them in 2019. By that point, I think we were doing like 1.2. We were going to get like a store, like an alcohol store going. We were going to, start expanding into a bunch of different stuff. And then COVID happened. We were going to go into a banner year, and, March 2020 came around in the middle of our biggest time of the year and just shut everything down. So we were closed for about 5 months. And then, Arizona, like Texas, was pretty open. We were really lucky that all of my locations were in these free states that weren't, shut down for so long. And that actually attracted a lot of attention because they were running all these crazy news articles on NBC News, record COVID cases in Arizona, and every single one of these Lester Holt newscasts on NBC had B-roll of my bikes going through the entertainment district. But what happened was people saw that and they were like, oh my God, I can't even eat at a restaurant in Chicago. I'm going to Scottsdale. And Scottsdale, it was always a tourism destination, but it got really, really put on the map at that point. And so during that fall of 2020, I was paying the bills. I was doing like 60% of our 2019 revenue. But then as soon as like January, February 2021 started to kind of roll out, oh, we're doing 125%. We're doing 150%. We're doing 200%. And basically for the next couple of years, it was just drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I had to basically triple my staff within 2 months. Wow. In that spring of 2021, because it just came back so rapidly. And then our revenue peaked in 2023, probably about triple our 2019 numbers. So I mean, it just went crazy.
3 million?
Yeah, it was over 3 million, including the store. And then of course, I would say fall of 2023, between inflation, student loans, revenge travel being over, all that kind of stuff. You started to see that COVID bump kind of dissipate. But still, twice, there were a lot of trends, like twice as many people were getting married because of all the delayed weddings. So we had twice as many bachelorette parties for a couple years. And so that stuff started to kind of normalize. But a lot of people went down to below 2019 numbers post-COVID bump. We're still more than double our 2019 numbers. Scottsdale as a destination just grew so much. So many people are still coming here. And then as a business, pat myself on the back, but I think we did a really good job executing and positioning ourselves in the market. And so in 2023, TripAdvisor named us the number 4 experience in the country. And so we just have a ton of brand equity as just like one of the things you've got to do when you come here. So that's kind of allowed us to keep probably riding a bit more of a wave than some other experiences have been.
Hey guys, wanted to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies for a second. I'm Patrick Dichter and I own Apple Tree Business Services. We do quality accounting and tax nationwide. So if you're running a business or looking to buy a business, we'd love to help you out with accounting and tax services. You can find us at appletreebusiness.com. And Clint, tell us about Bison Business.
Yeah, Bison Business is my firm. We do nationwide M&A. So we help people buy and sell companies. Most of our customers have companies in the 1 to 20 million revenue range, profitable businesses. So if you've got one and you're ready to get acquired, you can reach out to us at bisonbusiness.com for a complimentary evaluation. We can get you to market and get you sold. If you're a listener that's a buyer that wants to buy a company that size, make sure you're on our email list because we'll send you out deals first before they hit the market anywhere else. But we'd love to serve you anytime you're thinking of acquiring or selling your business. We want to be your first stop at Bison Business.
Awesome. Now back to the show.
So when I met you, I always have to jump into valuation because that's what I do, and people want to hear this kind of stuff on this show. I can speak kind of authoritatively on this one because I was interested in it and really spent 3 hours talking about it when I first met you in Dallas, and I had ballparked his valuation pretty much at the peak time, I think.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I bet I can get you $5 million for this company. Fast forward to today, that feeding frenzy post-COVID has worn off a little bit, but you've stabilized still ahead of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And you're doing about 2.5-ish of revenue and driving about $700K to the bottom line there in Arizona and earnings. And I'm still thinking that like this is a company that's probably at least a $3 million business, maybe 3 to 4. And listeners that think that's a rich multiple, I'm going to push back and disagree, just because he has a substantial moat around this business. It's extremely hard to duplicate. You can't get the bikes if you want them. The legislation in Arizona has some stuff that like kind of protects you as well, right? Like it's kind of hard to compete.
Oh yeah, we did talk about all that type of stuff. So the quick summary of that story is that to get alcohol on board, using my skills from working in politics and doing lobbying, we had to write a law so that we could have alcohol on board. But part of that law was that the bikes have to be manufactured by a licensed Arizona motor vehicle manufacturer. And as far as I know, it was us and our competitor who were building them in Arizona, and we bought our competitor. So that's pretty much the story there. Everyone who I will tell you, there's probably about 3 companies a year that try to start up in Scottsdale. I know that because I can do public records requests with the city, and I can see them emailing the city and, hey, I want to do this. How can I do this? They just refer them to the state law. They never get going. We've had a couple times where someone's tried to start, and then 2 weeks later, they've got their vehicle impounded. So, I mean, there's a substantial moat around that from the legal sense. But then, we've also got probably like the top 5 spots on, if you Google even generic terms for our business, we've got like the top 5 or 6 spots because we've got multiple websites that market us that we all own. And so you've got to overcome the SEO hurdle. You've got to overcome our general brand equity, the experience. There's a lot there.
He's got a very strong, dominant.
Yeah, that's amazing.
In a very fun niche, and it's just been a great cash cow for you. And then on top of that, in the summers when it's 110 degrees, you don't have to do much, right? Like you get to Skeleton Crew are pretty much shut down, and you bail. And what do you normally do? You go to Costa Rica, or you go play with your family? What do you do? What's your life like?
Yeah, so it is a seasonal business, and we make most of our money when the weather's great. Like right now, I mean, as you can see, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt outside. It's about 70 degrees. And but in the summer, it gets up to 115. Our business drops about 75%. So we work really hard during that busy tourism season, and then we've got the ability to take time off. I like to go to Costa Rica and go surfing. We'll do that for like 2 to 4 weeks. My wife's finally saying maybe we should do something else. But my son's finally, he's 6.5 now. He's old enough to do surf camp. So I think he's going to pull through for me and enforce it. But I mean, the month of July, man, it's just like, you've got your managers, you've got your mechanic, you've got all the people in place. So like, even during the busy season, it's not like you're going like absolutely crazy. But then when it's like June, July, and August, and it's just, you're down 75%, you're just like, why would I be here? Like, everyone's taking care of stuff. There's, in comparison, nothing going on. And then you just work out vacation schedules with your team. We do 4 weeks of PTO for all of our full-time managers and stuff like that. So, I mean, you imagine the industry, like, they love to travel. They love to do those kind of things. And there's times in the year where we have those dips where we can all enjoy that. And it's a cool thing that we can provide that a lot of small businesses and even corporations can't.
Man, that's an incredible journey from bailing on your congressional job to putting those skills to work full circle later with your alcohol licensing. So pre-call, we were talking about some of these other locations you started from scratch, and then some you bought, like kind of flailing operations, and you'd turn them around. So what was that like? If you think about like the pros and cons of like opening a new market from scratch versus trying to turn around somebody else that had struggled, was there a playbook that you had to go in and improve the operation, or do you have a preference now of like build from scratch versus buy?
My lifestyle now is so different from when I was first getting going. I've got kids now and all that stuff, and my family and what we do together drives a lot of my decision making. But if I'm going to look back into my mindset back in like, pre having kids, basically, we got going. I knew everything we needed. So in a sense, yeah, I've got a playbook. We've got a protocol for how to train the drivers, how to do all the day-to-day management, scheduling, payroll, all the parts that we need, how-tos on the basic maintenance, all the things that we're going to need. So yeah, basically you get a playbook together. And then it got to the point where when I opened up Dallas, which was my first out-of-state location, besides having to find the right place to put these things, because you want to find like a warehouse or something like that in a downtown area. You don't want to be towing them around and stuff like that. So besides the difficulty of finding the right location that's near where all the bars are, I mean, I can get one of these things going in 2 weeks, right?
Wow.
I mean, find the location. If you have the bikes, all the parts you need, you need to hire people, you put the ad out, you train them, you get the website, you clone the website, you know what I mean? You just do all that type of stuff. And I mean, Dallas, as soon as we knew we could get into our location, I had our Arizona website cloned, new products, went there on the ground for like a week, developed our new routes, bar partners, got people hired. And by the time I left, we had 3 employees on one bike in January, February of 2017. And by that fall, we had 3 bikes and 9 drivers. And you just kind of, and then you take your best one who's got some skills and make him into a manager. And then as you grow beyond that, maybe his skills can't scale with that. You just got to keep adjusting based on what you need. But it just gets easier and easier and easier. But for me, one of the questions, was like that family aspect of, do I want to be worrying about things that are 1,000 miles away? And there's a little bit of a scale problem too, which is your all these like small locations also kind of multiply your problems. Whereas I'll say this, yeah, like there's some skill involved and whatever, but I'm obviously extremely fortunate being in Arizona, where we are in one of the biggest tourism markets. I didn't plan it that way. That's just how the cards fell. And having one big location is way better than having a bunch of small locations, right? So much more.
Yeah, you've got extra drivers, extra bikes. Yeah,
all the management's in-house, so much more can just be handled all in one location, and you can deal with things quickly, efficiently, a lot more capacity, a lot more customers. The experience is so much better for people. It's great. To answer your question about competitors, I mean, that really went a whole lot of different ways. I had a little bit of a playbook for that as well. I had always wanted to acquire our competitor in Scottsdale. And so, yeah, we were competitive, but we would get together every once in a while and chat. And so my playbook pretty much starts with planting the seed about a year before you want to do it. It just takes their minds time to wrap around this idea of selling. And even if you want it right now, like they just can't come to peace with the idea that soon, even if they should totally sell. I mean, you're just crushing them. It just takes their minds a little bit of time, right? Mm-hmm. And so we probably started having those discussions in like late 2017, early 2018 in Scottsdale. And then I just remember when we got together probably in the second half of 2018 and he was ready to sell and we kind of came to an agreement. We're going to share numbers, right? NDA, we're going to share numbers and see if this is something we might want to do. And the true story, he looked at our numbers, saw that we were doubling every year, and his numbers were stagnant for those 3 years. And by the time that we got to that current year, I was 3 times bigger than he was, even though we had been smaller than him 3 years prior. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the moment where he was like thinking to himself, he had a full-time job. He was running this as a side business. Does he have it in him to compete and try to win this battle?
Right.
And so we were able to come to terms and he sold to us. Dallas, on the other hand, was more of like a COVID situation where we ended up having 2 competitors by 2020 in that market. Even though we were the dominant one, they still took about 20% market share. And to be honest, COVID just freaked them out. Business dropped. They lost their manager. The guy moved back to Indiana. They had like 15K in the bank. And it was one of these things where it's like, hey, like you're going to move your bikes back to your other markets, your home market where you're from. I don't even want them. I don't even want your bikes. I just want your sales channel. And so we made a deal. We were able to take over their websites and their names and social media channels and all that type of stuff. And, believing that the world was not actually ending. I think we did that deal in June of 2020. And, by September, our business was double September 2019. So it just ended up being a good deal for us. For the turnaround operations, we just took our normal playbook, right? It was, let's take a 2-operator market where there's 2 operators who aren't doing well. Let's go for the number 2 operator, buy them for cheap, turn them around, become the number 1 operator, and either hold it or sell it.
So from my perspective, Robert, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, it seems like at one point you were thinking, we're killing it in Arizona. We've got the playbook. We know how to do this. Let's take over the world and get a whole bunch of locations all over the place, and take advantage of our knowledge and our manufacturing capability and just go win the world. But then it seems like you retreated back a little bit and like you sold Dallas, sold Austin. You said you were content with keeping San Antonio mainly because you have a partner that's your operator and you don't feel the problems of it. And it almost seems like you're, got retreated back to Fortress, Arizona, where you've really got your strength and you got a great business there. And so was it just kind of like doing the math in terms of like, man, I might be able to make more money if I go to all these other markets, but it's not worth the brain damage because I'm making such a great living here in Arizona? Or like, what made you kind of expand out and then retreat back to Arizona? And then the final question beyond that would be like, and then what would make you change your mind about ever selling Arizona, or are you planning on keeping it forever?
Yeah. So I really started thinking about pulling back from these out-of-state locations when we had our first son in 2018. So, I basically have had this location for a year and a half. That's it. And I was like, well, I'm going to build it into a great spot, and I'm going to build to sell. That's my original. And by the way, that's my original intention with Arizona Party Bike too. Like, I'm not starting these businesses to hold onto them forever. I fully intend to do different things with my life. It just so happens that I've done them much longer than I originally thought I was going to be doing them. And it's, as long as it's been interesting, I keep doing it essentially. But that's when I really started thinking about that. And by the time my manager out there, Sean, when he bought Dallas, I mean, he's such a good guy. I used to go out there for days at a time, every month. Those last couple of years, I probably went out every quarter. By the last year, twice a year. I mean, he did such a good job running it. You just knew he would be like such a great owner of it. So I felt really, really great about that one. But then, again, it's like those multiplying problems of all these out-of-state businesses and the responsibility around it. When here I am in one of the greatest tourism markets in the country, and if I want to keep expanding my business potentially, I can do it all within 15-minute drive of my house and be home for dinner, And so that's what drove a lot of the decision making there. I mean, they're all great businesses, but I just didn't think that it was really going to fit with my future lifestyle. Don't get me wrong. When I got them going, I was broke, right? I mean, I was just grinding to try to make these into great businesses that would provide a good income, and I enjoyed doing it. But there is always that calculation when it's just like, all right, I think maybe that's even just an opportunity cost problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I can do this one in Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. I could also sell them and make some money. And I can also have similar or greater opportunities nearby. So that was just kind of the logical thought process. Yeah, with all that.
Okay. I mean, that makes total sense. But just sticking on Arizona for a second. So, um, you said you're building to sell. I'm telling you, you've got a very sellable business, very desirable business. You've done a great job at that. What would be the triggering event that you would say, if this happened, I would think it's time to sell? Is that a certain number you want to hit? Or is that like, when you get bored with it, or like, what do you think would be the thing that would make you give me a call one day and say, Clint, let's get it done?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, in terms of like the number, like that's probably fine for me. I don't really have like a concern with that number being too low or anything like that. And we've done really well over the last few years too, so that's helped. But for me, number one, like it's got to be interesting. And I think that's one of the bigger things I struggle with is I've been doing this for a long time, so it's almost like I can do it with a blindfold on. And one of the things that I've been trying to just work through over the last couple years, and having worked so hard on it post COVID, is just finding that time to pursue other interests while holding the business, or do I need to eventually let go of the business in order to just pursue new things that are interesting to me. So that's honestly, I hate to do boring stuff. I hate to be bored, and that's like just like a huge factor for me. And honestly, in 2023, I probably would have sold it. Like I was very interested, but I'm probably a little too self-critical on this point. But at this, two things right now that affect my decision are, I feel like it'll do a little bit better on the market if I've got the numbers fully stabilized and showing a bit of growth. Yeah. I don't think I can make a strong argument to someone if you have year over year declining sales. So we're finally at that point. If we have a strong spring season, then I think we'll be able to show, hey, yeah, we've got it all back in place, and we can be pretty confident that, this is where we're at. So, I want to be able to show that. I don't think I would have felt very good if I had sold Arizona Party Bike in spring of 2023 and then someone was left holding the bag with a 20% decline. I'd probably be buying it back already. And I'm their landlord. I own the property we're on. So it kind of is what it is. Like, yeah, would I have liked to? Sure, but that's just not what happened. The other thing too is that along the lines of like, what are the opportunities in this market that are really interesting to me, or potentially even to a future buyer, is that because this is such a strong tourism market and there's a lot of ability to cross market these different experiences, I've always thought that there'd just be a huge opportunity in being kind of a multi-experience company. So with, unique, fun, memorable stuff that's not easy to replicate. So obviously we have the party bikes. I mean, there's some amazing companies here. There's hot air balloon tours. A local company here, it has 40,000 guests per year at $200 a head. So think about, pretty decent math on that. And so once you acquire one customer, say you get a bachelorette party and they're doing a hot air balloon tour, they'd probably do a party bike as well because the demographic lines up. So there's a lot of scalability to having those multiple experiences. And one thing that I've been working on for 5 years now, and it's coming to fruition, and this is like probably the one thing that would really keep me in the business for the next few years, is I've been pitching. If you know the city of Tempe, it's just south of Scottsdale, just east of Phoenix. It's got the only urban body of water called Tempe Town Lake that's smack in the middle of Metro Phoenix. And I've been pitching a party bike boat concept to them for the last 5 years that my buddy manufactures as part of his franchise. It's 26 passenger, 2 crew, everybody pedals, and it turns a paddle wheel on the back, and you can have your adult beverages on board. So super fun, cool experience. And after 5 years, last year, they rallied behind it and they released an RFP to do a tour boat business on this lake, and we won. And so we're essentially in the middle now of figuring out all the issues. We're going to have to build out all the infrastructure on the lake. But we're basically talking about a potentially 25-year monopoly tour boat contract on the only lake in Metro Phoenix. You can get there 15 minutes from any part of Metro Phoenix, essentially. And if you want to go to one of the other lakes, you've got to drive like an hour out of town. So you're in the desert, it's a lake, partying on the water. Like, to me, it's just like a no-brainer, unique experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty interested in doing that. And then I would have the question of, once I've got it all set up and it's operating and it's good, maybe I would sell them both together or something like that. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about right now.
That is awesome, man. I mean, that's a lot of patience and just hanging in there for 5 years to make that happen.
Can you imagine every year when I come knocking on the door and I'm like, hey, it's me again. I want to start this boat business.
What's the scene on that lake otherwise? Are there like normal, like,
There are other boats on it or anything, or no?
They've got some of those like 6-person, like little rentals and stuff like that, where you can kind of go out there like with your family and like the little dragon boats or donut boats or little stuff like that. But there's no alcohol allowed on the lake. There's no other commercial operators besides a small, like 6-person little boat rentals that you can do. But as part of our concession contract, our passengers are going to be allowed to have, I think, up to 3 or 4 adult beverages on board for their experience. So, I mean, it is a big policy shift with the city to allow that. Obviously, they want to work with an operator who has the experience and can bring the guests and operate it really well and really safely. And that's why they chose us. And we're going to try to make it into a destination experience for them. We want to bring 40,000 people to Tempe Town Lake and feed them into downtown Tempe. It'll be another great business. And that boat operation is 10 minutes away from our party bike location. So if someone books a bike, they'll probably want to do the boat and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And we didn't talk about this, but like, you are able to sell alcohol on the party bikes, right? Like, are you making most of your revenue selling alcohol or selling the bikes by the hour or selling the novelty items, or like, what's your revenue mix?
The main revenue is the tour, the parties or the tour itself. So the pricing on that varies from $49 to $59 a person, or $4.99 to $5.99 for a private party, for up to 14 people. 40 to 50,000 guests per year. And then the alcohol is something that we kind of started as kind of they're allowed to have alcohol on board. Currently, they're just BYOBing, and tourists, they don't have an ice chest. Corporate groups, like, they don't want the hassle. So we opened up this store and then made our Scottsdale location to where you had to buy from us, but it's pretty cheap. Like, it's not even near close to the price of a bar. And I'd say the store probably does about 400,000 in revenue or so.
And do you want to tell our listeners if the consumers of penis straws were ranked in the world, where you would fall on the world rankings?
I was waiting for when we would talk about your favorite subject, Clint. But I would say we might be the highest seller of penis straws per square foot, also anywhere in the world. Last time I checked our report, I believe last year we sold about 5,000 penis straws.
Amazing. Proud of you.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that right there is reason you want to own this business. That's a party trick if there ever was one. That's bragging rights right there.
You got to give the girls what they want,
Are you doing more business? Is there one in Nashville? Are you doing more than the Nashville operator?
Nashville is like a total market size. Like, they have fewer bikes, but they have just a high, like, more customers that go there. Yeah. Nashville's a bigger bachelorette market, and there's 2 main operators there. There's Pedal Tavern, which is owned by a guy named Pete that I also went to the University of Arizona with, and the other one's owned by a guy named Emmett who bought my bikes. So he has 9 of my bikes.
Yeah.
So, and they've just been crushing it out there for years.
That is, when I think of like bachelorettes, like I always think of Nashville as like, it's just crazy how much has grown for that. So,
Yeah.
Do you have any guess like how much revenue you might be able to do on the lake if you get the lake business going?
I would assume it would probably be at least similar. I think over the next few years, we could build it up to probably about 40,000 guests per year as well. But you're running fewer vehicles because you can put more people on the boats than you can on the bikes. And I think there's actually a wider appeal. You know, one of the issues we have with the bikes, just from a marketing perspective, is that Scottsdale became the number 2 bachelorette destination behind Nashville. And so we did a ton of bachelorette parties. I mean, just crazy. But then people start to see you as a bachelorette thing. They no longer see you as a birthday party thing or a, corporate event thing. Oh, that's just for people who party. So a lot of our marketing over the last couple of years has been like turning around that. We really benefited from the perception initially, right? Yeah. But then we've got to turn it around and make sure we broaden the audience. And I think the boats naturally have a broader audience. I mean, you can do school field trips. Corporate groups would have no problem taking their groups out on a boat excursion, Whereas with the bikes, we have to let them know, hey, it's not just a giant drinking thing for your group of accountants. We can do a scavenger hunt, stuff like that. I think it'll eventually surpass the bikes potentially.
Super cool, man. So sounds like you're kind of in the middle. Like you're inspired because of the new stuff you got going on with the boat opportunity. But you're also thinking, once I stabilize this bike business, it might make sense to get acquired, once it's kind of stable and where it needs to be. But you're kind of driven by your interest, like what are you going to do next? I almost feel like the moment you're going to be really ready is when you get a compelling new vision, that maybe takes you out of Arizona or takes you into a totally different sector where it feels like, oh yeah, the party bikes and even the boats, it's going to be a distraction because of this new goal I want to chase or this new vision I have for my life. And so, I appreciate your perspective. Robert's a wealth of knowledge about physical health, about family, balance and entrepreneurship and internet marketing, just all kinds of cool topics. Bit of a Renaissance man. I really enjoy our conversations, man.
Yeah. Check out my Twitter feed, Clint. It's full of Renaissance man material. I am if anyone ever wants to talk to me, I love to talk about all sorts of topics, but my X feed is trash.
Yeah. Don't judge him by his Twitter feed, but just get him.
Right, so do we link to your X feed and all that trash, or if people want to connect with you online, where should we send them?
Yeah, you can send them to my X profile. They'll just be disappointed.
Well, man, it's been super fun kind of hearing your story and reconnecting with you on this. I'm really curious to hear how the boat business develops, and let's be in touch, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on. That was a lot of fun.
All right, talk to you soon.